What's up, YouTube fans? Today we are meeting with Sixo, the world famous photographer, blogger, whatever the titles you want to use.
I don't really mind, yeah. Whatever people call me, I guess.
So Sixo, if you don't know him, he has a couple websites. So he has a blog of his own, Sixo Transformers. These links will all be in the description below, so you can click on them and take a look at some of his photos and articles. He also works with TF Source, and he has a blog with TF Source. And he just recently started a YouTube channel called Sixo, so you can go ahead and take a look at his channel as well. So all of those links will be in the description. Is there anything else that you work on that you want to talk about?
No, I guess that's the main one. That's probably enough, right? Yeah, no, those are the main ones, definitely. So I don't need a third blog. That would be a bit crazy. But.
Well, one thing, when I talked to View about his channel, one thing he mentioned is he has this music cloud where he upload. I guess he's part of a band.
Yeah,
he uploads music to that. So he mentioned that. So I was just any other medium that you have, you can.
Yeah. No. It's those are the main ones, definitely.
So yeah, I really appreciate you being able to join and willing to come on a channel. I know this is not something you do all the time, and I kind of been harassing you for almost 6 months, I think.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate being asked, and it's great to join. And we were just talking before we went live there, and I was saying that I think the first time you asked, it was probably not something that I was quite ready for, really. But having got a bit more comfortable, with being on camera and doing YouTube now on my own, it sort of seems a bit more natural, maybe a little bit less alien. Whereas at the time, it was like, oh, do I really want to be on camera? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? That's could be a bit strange,
right? Because you've always had time to set up the shot or write the article or
definitely. It's really different. I mean, even doing pre-recorded stuff for YouTube, it's still amazingly different, actually. Because when you're writing blogs or you're doing photography, you've got a lot of time to prepare, and so you're very much in control of of what you're putting out there, if that sort of makes sense, and you can hone it and tweak it and whatever else. Whereas even pre-recorded stuff for YouTube, there's an element of just like getting it done and putting it out there, as it were. So it definitely feels quite different. So
yeah, live streaming is all those filters are removed.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're gonna do this just like we've done all of our other interviews. I have some questions I'm gonna talk to Sixo about. And then anyone that's watching, let's see, we have 9 people right now. That'll probably go up as we keep going. Any of you that are watching, you feel free to add questions at the end, and we'll try to address those. But let me get through my stuff first, and then we'll get to this.
Fire away.
So how did you get into Transformers and taking pictures? What started you off doing
that? Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I think to some extent I've always been into Transformers. I mean, obviously I was a big fan when I was a kid. So growing up for me, it was the toy line that I was into. Beyond anything else, I mean, I enjoyed Lego and stuff as well, like every kid. But Transformers was really the one that made an impact. And I was a little bit too young to get into the first wave. I mean, I was when it all started in 1984, I was too young for that. But kind of came a little bit sort of later. So for me, for Generation 1, it was stuff from sort of 1987 onwards, maybe, some of the later years, which is probably why, I really enjoy some of those later lines still now. But then I really came back to it. I think as a teenager, I had a friend that had bought a couple of Beast Wars figures. And at the time, I was kind of like, "Oh, what's this?" Do you know what I mean? Oh, it's Transformers. It's all related. And I got to watching the cartoon and really enjoyed it. And I wouldn't say at that point that I was, like a collector. I was probably too focused on other things. But I did have, quite a few of the toys at the time, and so kind of kept, keeping in with it, if that makes sense.
Right.
And then I stopped with Beast Machines, which now I do like. I actually do like Beast Machines, but at the time, not so much. Do you know what I mean?
Beast Wars your preference over G1?
I like them both. I think I'm not really, a lot of people obviously get quite tribal about it. Do you know what I mean? Like G1's the best or Beast Wars is the best.
Right.
I think I really like them both equally. And actually these days I'm very mellow about it. You know, there's something to like in all Transformers series, really. I mean, I've been like right now, you know, I watch like Rescue Bots with my son, with my boy, and you know, he loves it. And it's just interesting to see how it's nothing to do with really with the Transformers that I grew up with, but it's its own thing. You know what I mean? And I can see the good in it and what have you. So yeah, I mean, I think Beast Wars is definitely, and Beast Machine certainly are definitely some of the more, you know, different things that the franchise has done, but still just as good in my mind. But then anyway, to sort of not waffle on, but then I got really back into collecting, I think, with like a lot of people, with MP1, you know, or 20th anniversary Prime, as it was to me, and alternators. In fact, I remember being in New York randomly on holiday and going through a Toys R Us at the time and seeing alternators swindle on the shelf. And just being like, wow, you know, what's that? That looks amazing. And that really kind of got me back into collecting. And then for years, it was just the odd masterpiece release, really. And obviously at the time, they were only getting released every 2 years or so. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's quite funny because people nowadays complain, you know, and say, oh, we need more masterpiece toys, what have you. They don't do enough. But I think, you know, there was solid 2-year gaps between releases at the time.
Right.
So, and that was enough for me. And then it was about 2014 when, give or take, I think, when it all sort of, you know, I kind of got into third-party stuff as well, and it just sort of snowballed from there. And at some point, I was like, I'll start collecting G1 again. Why not?
When did you start blogging, though?
That was about 2014, 2015, I think, maybe 2015. So about 5 years now. And that, yeah, that just kind of started, I don't want to say by accident, but so I basically, I got back onto TFW 2005. And, you know, I had an account there from years prior anyway, but I looked into it, you know, found the password and got back on there and started just sort of sharing a couple of photos of things that I'd collected. I think at the time it was Feral Rex, which, you know, a lot of people love that third-party Predaking. It was kind of everywhere at the time. Sadly, I've sold it on now, but it's still a great toy, really, really cool toy. And so I shared some pictures of that, and, you know, people were really positive about it. And yeah, I kind of got into, like, I've always loved photography anyway, like even before Transformers, you know, I've done courses and stuff, and I do a lot of like landscape photography and things like that. So it's a hobby for me outside of toys anyway.
That's not your job, right? That's
no. It's not. No, I would love it to be, but no, never sort of taken off in that way. But yeah, no. So I got into just like sharing a few pictures, and it created like a nice response. And then it was actually Dame Chock who randomly, everyone knows Dame Chock, I think, you know, with the Facebook page, and he's, you know, shares loads of photos and what have you. And he got in touch randomly, messaged me and said, you know, have you thought about doing a Facebook page? And I was like, well, I guess I could, you know what I mean? Just as somewhere to post my photos that wasn't TFW 2005, you know, that was like my own thing, as it were. And so I did that, and then people were really, really supportive. I had a great response, which was really, really nice. And then the blog, I guess, started because Kapow Toys in the UK, one of the UK-based retailer, got in touch and asked me if I'd like to do a review of Masterpiece Tracks, which had just come out, or actually I think was on the horizon. It wasn't even out yet. And they said, we can get an early sample of this. Do you want to do it? And I was like, definitely. Do you know what I mean? No problem.
Who would turn that down?
Hey?
I said, who would turn that down? Well,
exactly, yeah. And I remember it was a real thrill because the only pictures of it that were out at the time were the official ones, you know. So it was just that excitement of like, oh, wow, I've got this in hand before a lot of people. Awesome. And so, you know, I did the review, and then that led to another and another. And then actually, I was just sharing them on Facebook at the time. And then I think just quite naturally, I thought, okay, so I need to have somewhere to keep these, do you know what I mean, to kind of, you know, publish them properly. And so that became a blog, and then it sort of snowballed from there, I guess. So
I just want to acknowledge there's like 22 people watching, and then quite a few reviewers on. So you may know some of these people. Bots and Bits Sam.
Yeah. I know Bots and Bits. Yeah.
T-Man 978. He's more popular here, but
yeah. No, I know them. Yeah, no, I watch.
Okay. Epic Disaster. He's the reviewer for the Chosen Prime.
Oh yeah. I know.
Sure, it's a store in the U.S., but I think people buy internationally too.
Yeah, the thing with the UK is that there are only a couple of UK-based retailers. So actually, most of us are very familiar with worldwide retailers, really, whether they're in America or elsewhere. We just kind of get used to the fact that we have to import a lot of stuff as well. So, and I know the Chosen Prime. I've bought from there before myself.
Yeah, and everyone else, if I don't know you and I didn't mention your name, thanks for joining us. Regardless, where'd you get the name Sixo from?
Actually, I had it for years. I remembered this recently that I had it since I was a teenager, randomly. Okay. I think at the time I just picked a name kind of randomly, and it's not really the most interesting story. I'm sorry, but so and then I know that I went to the BotCon Europe that happened in I think it was in London. Was it in London? I think it was in London in 1999. And the badge that I wore to that says Sixo on it. So that was in '99, and I was still a teenager at the time, just. And so I just kind of kept it. And then I think I came back to it just because of TFW 2005, because I'd signed up for an account there with that name. And so then when I kind of came, back to collecting and back online, I was like, well, I'll just use this same profile and this same name. And it's just sort of stuck from there. And I don't know, I guess it's a useful name because it's short and maybe quite memorable. And
it's catchy.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just kind of gone from there.
So I've done a few of these interviews, and a lot of times I ask people where they get the name, and it's almost always it's not an interesting story. It's just
sometimes it's just what you pick, isn't it? I think I was probably glad to not have a name that was like something or other Prime, or do you know what I mean, or what have you. Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course, but I think I was probably at the time just looking for a slightly distinctive name. That was maybe just not necessarily Transformers related, as it were. So
right. I saw a lot of comments earlier about Beast Wars getting people back into Transformers.
Yeah.
I kind of, same thing happened to me that happened to you, is when I saw MP1. Well, in the US, they didn't have the title MP1. It was just 25th anniversary, I think.
Yeah.
Version, and so it was in Walmart, and I saw this. I was like, "What is this? They've never had something like this." And then right next to it, or kind of around the same time, was Alternators.
Yeah.
And that got me back. That was my Masterpiece before Masterpiece existed.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, and I was the same for years. I mean, I loved those toys, and I still do, actually. I mean, I would love to have a complete Alternators and Vinyl Tech collection still. But you have to make sacrifices somewhere, right? And otherwise, it just becomes too much stuff. But yeah, no, it's a great line, definitely.
So when you started blogs, I know you were taking pictures. You talked about you always liked taking photographs. It was a kind of hobby of yours. But what made you start writing those blogs, writing those articles?
Well, as I say, it was probably the first one was definitely the review that I did for Kapow Toys with Masterpiece Tracks. But I've always enjoyed writing as well. That was something that I was always, I enjoyed at school. I like to have always enjoyed having a kind of creative outlet of some kind, whatever that may be. I've previously enjoyed painting and all kinds of things. And so I don't know, for me it was just a really good way to kind of express that a little bit, but with a hobby that I love as well. And as I say, really it kind of snowballed. I mean, for years all I did was reviews, third-party stuff, Masterpiece, what have you. And then more recently with TF Source, they approached me. I was trying to think if that was true as I was saying it, but they approached me. I don't want to be like, but no, they approached me, and that was a little while back, obviously. And it just seemed like a really natural progression. Do you know what I mean? It was quite strange to start with writing about stuff that wasn't reviews, because you do kind of, when all you do is reviews, of course, you can get a little bit kind of into the formula of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Actually, now it's really nice to write about lots of different stuff, you know, and kind of vary it up a little bit, so it keeps it a bit more fresh for me anyway. So yeah,
That's good. So what about the YouTube channel? I know, you know, when I contacted you back in October, I don't know if you were considering a YouTube channel at that time, but
no, probably not actually. It was quite a quick thing to kind of come together. I hadn't.
So what made you do that? Why'd you start?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, people have suggested it to me for years. I've had numerous people, you know, either comments online or people even in person saying, "Hey, why don't you give this a go? This could be interesting." Which I hope it is anyway. But yeah, so I've had a lot of that over the years, and I'd always downplayed it and said, "No, it's not something I'm going to do." You know, I'm all about the textual reviews, what have you. I mean, that's what I like to do. And I think actually the first time I really thought about it was I did a panel at last year's 2019 TF Nation in Birmingham. And I did it. It was a co-panel with Maz from Transformers Square One, who I'm sure a lot of people also know. Yeah. Is a really, really good guy. And you know, we did that together. And I think at that point it was really good fun to present something, you know, live, what have you. And that kind of got me thinking a bit more because of the style of content that we were putting together for that. I mean, obviously, you know, it was all PowerPoint, what have you. So I think that kind of started in my brain of like, well, actually, is there more that I could do? And to be honest, it came together, the channel, quite quickly because, you know, we've been in lockdown, obviously, in the UK recently with COVID-19 and what have you. And so it was suddenly just thinking, well, hang on, I'm going to have a lot more time on my hands than maybe I anticipated. So what can I do with that? And really, that's kind of where it came from. So hence, it really wasn't a long gestating process. It was very much like, okay, I've got the time to do it now. Let's crack on with it, if that makes sense.
Well, you just got a new sub. Bots and Bits just subbed to you because he didn't even know you had a channel.
Thank you very much.
That's another reason why we do these, is just awareness of you know, different things going on in the community. So that's good.
Yeah.
So since you started it, you know, I did see you did a review on this guy right here. On the camera.
Yeah, I did. I just saw actually someone just in the comments has asked asking what he thinks about FansToys as well. It's funny how FansToys is the one that everyone wants to talk about, right? It's interesting.
You want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. I mean, I like FansToys. I have owned. Just thinking if I can say this honestly, I have owned every product I think that FansToys have put out at some point. Whether that's, you know, purchases I've made or, I mean, one or two bits, you know, that have been sent to me as review samples or what have you, which obviously vary in quality sometimes. You know, they can be kind of a bit wonky. You know, sometimes you get quite loose stuff. And what have you. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of FansToys. I think, you know, not everything they've ever done has been an absolute win. Some stuff like Tesla, their Perceptor it's okay, you know, it's fine. Some stuff of theirs I had and sold on in favor of other stuff, like their reflector springs to mind. I wasn't a big fan. I know a lot of people like it and it does look cool, but just for me, no fun to handle. I didn't, you know, I just remember like aching fingers and stuff trying to transform it and what have you.
You need a spudger nowadays.
Hey? Yeah, and I don't have one, which I should do, but I keep hearing people refer to spudgers and I'm like, yeah, no, I need to get one of those. But no, generally speaking, I really like them. So their Warpath, you know, Sheridan, I think is a really nice figure, really well done. So it's good to kind of, you know, that was a good one because it didn't take them too long to get it out as well. I do have a little bit of I do roll my eyes a bit, you know, when they keep revealing new toys, like all the time. Like, you know, just recently they've unveiled Jazz and Mirage, and it's kind of like, well, that's nice to know that they're doing that, but how long is it going to be? You know, it's been, I think I pre-ordered their Blitzwing about 6 years ago or something crazy. I don't know, whenever it was.
Yeah,
I'm exaggerating, but you know, it's, but you know, generally speaking, they're definitely a good company. I really like them. And,
yeah.
you know,
I mean, for me, they're the ones keeping me going.
Yeah.
because they're basically making bad dreams from Twitter. They're making characters that either I don't have, or I had but wasn't happy with, and so I'd like to take another round at it. So I like that they're doing that, but yeah, it is going to be a while. I mean, Blitzwing actually they canceled the original, and now
and now it's a new one. Yeah, they're doing it again. Which one was it? Do you mind me asking? Which one was it that you preferred from FansToys as opposed to official? Was it Hot Rod or?
Yeah, and that one is very controversial because it has its own issues. But I do prefer the Hoodlum over the Takara. But I mean, the name of my channel is Transformers Masterpiece Reviews, TM Reviews. That's what it stands for. So I feel obligated to look at every Takara product that comes out.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean I always prefer their products. Sometimes it's not my preference.
Yeah, same. To be honest, I mean, the first one I think for me was Grinder. With Grimlock. That was the first one where I was like, wow. I mean, I love MP8. It's a great toy. Smaller than it needs to be, obviously, but the design is really, really good, and so I definitely like that toy a lot. But with Grinder, I think that was the first one where I went, this is better than the official toy. It's just very sleek toy. And it was funny because actually when they unveiled Grinder, I remember thinking, they don't need to do this. There is an official one already. All right, yeah, it's size-wise, it doesn't quite match up, but it's fine. And it wasn't until I got Grinder in hand. But and that was a review sample I was sent. I remember I got sent it, and it was sometimes these things they say, oh, if you want to keep it, you can, what have you. Not all the time. And that one actually they wanted me to send it to someone else. I can't remember who it was, but I had to post it on again to go to another reviewer. And I remember thinking, wow, I love that, and so I bought it. I was like, and I still have it. I have 3 versions of the thing, obviously, but it's a really, really cool toy. Hoodlum actually was interesting because that one, not for me. I have to say, I prefer the official MP.
Yeah, it's got its own. There's some gaps in the midsection, and the paint. Yeah, it's got its own issues. But let's move on from FansToys because we're talking about toys. So, what toys do you collect?
Just Transformers for me. I've never.
Too.
Yeah. So nowadays it's obviously still Masterpiece and third-party Masterpiece. Nowadays, so Generation 1, and I have fairly decent, I would say, Generation 1 collection these days. Actually, it's kind of getting to the point where the stuff that's left to go is becoming, kind of more sort of high-end pricey stuff, which is a bit scary, because you don't want to go crazy as well. Do you know what I mean? So there's definitely a few bits there that I'm kind of looking at, thinking maybe that'll just never happen. Do you know? What have you?
Do you have a grail piece?
What's that? Oh, grail piece. Yeah, I was thinking about this, and it's really interesting because it's kind of a bit. I guess it's maybe a bit typical, but a lot of my quote unquote grail pieces are probably the Japanese G1 stuff. So I mean, for a long time, I would have said Grand Maximus because it just seemed, G1 Grand Maximus from Masterforce just seemed like the absolute ultimate, huge thing. And actually, I have one now. I managed to do a rather incredible deal to get one, and I love it. It's amazing. So then, obviously, your sights turn to elsewhere. But I mean, there are loads. So I guess now the one toy I often kind of think of as a grail is Big Powered. The original Big Powered, which obviously the 3 toys in one, which is really something. And it's not so much rare. I mean, I think it's interesting how people talk about Japanese G1 especially as being rare, and often they're not. It's just that they're expensive, and I think there is a big difference between being rare and being pricey, as it were. So that's definitely one that I would love to own eventually, but just right now, the price of it feels like it's a far away thing. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, I mean, there's stuff that I will probably never own, like Blue Bacchus and Black Shadow, the pretenders from that, from Victory. That just, I mean, you're talking easily 4 figures, but multiple 4 figures, if that makes sense, to own those. And so for me, that's just I respect people that want to do that and can do that, but that just seems like an awful lot of money to be putting down on toys, if that makes sense. So, and I would love to do it, but I just don't know if I can justify that. So, I suppose those are going to remain Grail pieces. But right now, probably the one that actually I would love to find and keep looking for is actually just a G1 red Bumblebee, a pre-rub, without the rub sign Bumblebee, in really like nice mint condition, which is a really hard toy to find. It's very, very common toy, but very often they're damaged. They've got broken like scratch paint on the back, or the arms are loose. The arms are always loose, or the head is loose. So actually that for me now, if I found just like a perfect non-loose mint condition pre-rub red Bumblebee, I'd be set.
So you're collecting G1 and Diaclone and
no Diaclone. Again,
that's why I went there.
Yeah, I would love to do Diaclone, but again, you got to draw the line somewhere.
Okay.
I looked at there was a Diaclone, a microchange gun robo, the one that wasn't released in Transformers ever. That was I saw on eBay recently, a loose copy that was going, and it went for a really great price. And actually, I was gutted that I kind of forgot about that and forgot to go on that. But generally speaking, microchange Diaclone, kind of drawn the line on those a bit, certainly for now. But yeah, so G1, G2, I'm pretty much complete on G2. And then I've just sort of started collecting RID, actually, or car robots.
Okay.
And starting to assemble that a little bit, which is really good fun, as I had a few of those toys back in the day. But it's been really interesting to kind of get to know that line a bit better. So
yeah, they have some really cool toys, like they combine together, and there's some stuff there.
Yeah, it's a great line, and it's a really quirky line as well. I think for a lot of people, RID and car robots got them back into collecting as well. It was kind of the same as MP1 in that respect. Back in 2000, 2001, post Beast Wars, there were a lot of people that maybe hadn't been collecting Transformers, that then suddenly they were like, oh, they turn into cars again. And actually that really got them back into it at the time. And even back then, I mean, I had the Ultra Magnus and the Car Robot Brothers themselves. So, it's a very eclectic line, really cool line. I actually have right here.
Oh, yeah.
Right, a recent acquisition, Skybite.
That's from...
Yeah, it's a very, very cool toy. Really cool.
That's
toy.
from RID? No.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's a repaint of Beast Wars Transmetal 2 Cybershark, but completely different color scheme.
Okay.
It's quite funny actually, because hey,
shiny.
Yeah, really shiny, really shiny. Actually, way nicer than the original toy, which is quite funny. So,
there's a question in the comments I wanted to address, because people are saying what they think you do. So the question was, how do you get the Transformers look so shiny in the pictures? And somebody mentioned a metallic filter, but
yeah, metallic filter is a funny one. I first heard that term years ago, I think online somewhere. I can't remember, and I got asked about it. The reality is that it's taking photos with a DSLR, camera. It's very different to obviously just shooting on your phone or what have you. So there are various things that can obviously be done with exposure. Sometimes, shooting, I used to, particularly in quite low light. So there wasn't always. I didn't have big kind of lights and stuff that I have now. So sometimes, if you literally just kind of tweak the contrast slightly afterwards, not even any major amount, then it can kind of give that look. But I think it's really
filter, right?
What's that?
There is no metallic filter.
No, there's no. I think people at the time had this assumption that it was like a button that I pressed or something. Do you know what I mean? To kind of give it this metallic sheen, but it really just happened very naturally, kind of through the process of taking the pics and stuff. I don't think it shows up as much in my photos these days. I don't know, but nowadays, I've got like a full studio style setup. Lots of different lights and stuff. And it's quite nice actually now, because I've managed to kind of get the space to set it up permanently in my house as well. My wife is very accommodating with that, which is really nice. And so that makes a big difference because it's just much easier to kind of take photos like that now, obviously. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm a terrible photographer. I take some very, very limited number of pictures just for the purpose of putting them in the review, but they're awful pictures. And I always look at like, okay, I'm gonna leave this to guys like Sixo.
but it doesn't matter because it's funny. I get a few comments from people online saying, oh, my pictures aren't as good as yours and what have you. And that's on the one hand, I guess that's nice to hear, but on the other, I don't want to discourage anybody from having a go because we all start somewhere. That's the thing. And certainly when I first started taking photos, they weren't good. I mean, that's not how you begin. And as I say, I mean, I was into photography before I got to Transformers, so I think I had a bit of a head start in that respect. And I think when it clicked for me the first time, I remember was a course that I went on in London, which I think was a birthday or Christmas present from my wife at the time, and this is years ago now. And it was a 2-day course, and we went, and it just the guy that taught it was great. He just really broke down some of the kind of key fundamentals of aperture and time and lots of all that kind of stuff. And so that for me really clicked, and I really got into it in a big way after that. So then coming to doing it with robots, it's very different, but the principles are the same. But you don't need all of that complicated stuff to just take a nice picture. It can just be with your phone. Just do it very simply, and just enjoy it. I guess just kind of enjoy what you do. That's kind of the thing that I always think anyway.
Yeah, one of my friends, T-Man, he's pretty good at photos, and it's really the framing and what the figures are doing that makes it fun. And they're always doing some crazy thing or something that I wouldn't think of. I just have them standing there in a normal like Transformers pose.
I know what you mean. Actually, I think if there was one thing that I often see, from other photographers or people sharing pictures online, I think, wow, that's really good. It's those creative pictures. There was one recently that I saw of, I can't remember who took it, but it was 4 different Optimus Primes carrying a trailer, his trailer, like it was a funeral coffin. A bit morbid, but still, it was really just that kind of creativity of like, oh, here's an idea, and no one else has thought to do this, so I'm going to put that in the photo. And it just really kind of struck me of how inventive that was. But you see stuff like that all the time, and actually there are people that share those kind of photos who are, I suppose they're not technically the best photographers, if that makes sense, but that doesn't matter because the photos that they share are genius, and they're really, really creative. And so that's kind of my thought on it. Whereas actually there are, I'm sure, people that have all the right kind of know-how for how to take a photograph, if that makes sense, all of the technical stuff, but actually maybe they're not as creative or what have you. So I think it's, you don't need to spend a lot of money on expensive cameras and a lot of time. You can just get snap happy with the phone and just kind of have fun with it. And I think that's what people respond to.
Yeah. So I'm going to go kind of off the beaten path here with Transformers for a minute. So I know, in the UK, you probably get a little bit different in terms of music and media, but what kind of music do you listen to? What do you like? And also part of that, what's your favorite 90s music?
Yeah, it was interesting that you asked me about 90s music, because that's probably, well, that's my, I guess, my generation. I like a lot of alternative music typically. I mean, these days I'm fairly open to what I listen to, which I think comes from being married for so long as well. Do you know what I mean? You kind of have to learn to appreciate someone else's musical tastes as well. But for years prior, I mean, I was very set with the kind of music that I liked, and what have you. I'd say, alternative, typically, sort of guitar focused, what have you. From the 90s, I'm a big grunge fan. So I grew up on a diet of stuff like Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and, all of those kind of bands that I still really enjoy listening to today. These days, really like a band called The National, who are, really, really good band. I've seen them live quite a few times. You know, stuff like Muse as well, I really enjoy. So yeah, that kind of alternative music for me, definitely.
Yeah, there was a lot. You know, the reason I
Yeah,
asked '90s because it was kind of explosion of different genres and music. So I find, depending on where you are in the world or even the US, the kind of music you like was influenced by, you know, what's around you a little bit.
yeah, definitely. Well, there's a really big music scene in the UK, and it's great. I mean, you know, there always has been, really. You know, stretching way back to you know, obvious bands like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and what have you. But and we've really kind of kept that as part of our culture. So we are kind of spoilt for choice because, you know, obviously we get all the kind of American bands and then, you know, bands from around the world, but and other musical artists. But yeah, we have a lot of our own as well, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I'm probably a lot more eclectic with my taste these days than I ever have been. But to be honest, it's funny. I was actually listening to some music earlier and thinking, wow, I haven't done this in ages because, you know, having a little boy now, you just kind of you lose track of that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? You don't get time to. And even when I do put music on, he's like, I don't want to listen to this. Do you know what I mean? And changes the CD or whatever. He's got his own ideas of what he likes to listen to. So
Yeah, the time I used to, you know, listen to music was in the car. You know,
yeah,
now my daughter's in the car. I'm not going to be putting on the kind of music I like. She's,
yeah,
I don't want to hear that.
yeah. This is it. I tried randomly putting on a Radiohead album the other day, and yeah, he was just like not having any of that, and he's, I mean, he's only little, but he can change CDs and stuff like that, you know, and he just took it straight off, so didn't happen.
So when I spoke to Thew, he was also into grunge and that
Yeah.
kind of music, and actually he makes that kind of music. He's part of a band.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, so you mentioned earlier TF Nation. Do you ever go to TF Con or any of the other ones outside of the UK?
No, but I would love to. I would love to do TFCon. I'd love to do TFCon one day. I guess it was kind of always somewhere in my brain, you know, thinking I'd love to do BotCon one day. So definitely TFCon, you know, would be a dream. I suppose it's a difficult one, obviously, in terms of, you know, getting there, what have you. You know, it's quite a distance. I know people do that. It would have been something that previously I would have done. I've been to America quite a few times, but again, having had a kid, you know, it's kind of more difficult these days to kind of contemplate that. So it might be one maybe for the future. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, TF Nation is really kind of, you know, it for me now. It's a big part of, obviously, the social calendar, as it were, every August. But it's a really great convention. You know, I think I was just saying to you before we went live that if there's people in the UK that are part of the online Transformers fandom, they probably do go to TFN. You know, everybody you can kind of think of, people like Chris McFeely, you know, what have you. They're all at TF Nation, which is quite interesting. So
we had obviously 2 TF Cons were planned for this year. I'm pretty sure at this point, the first one was canceled already. Orlando. I was actually going to Orlando, but that one was canceled. And then the next one that was supposed to happen, that one is now canceled. There's a third one, which I think it's still up in the air, but it's probably not going to happen just because restrictions around COVID. And I haven't really talked about that. I don't really want to get into, you know, the way the world is right now. It's kind of crazy.
It is.
I mean, I want to recognize that, you know, this caused a lot of disruption in people's lives and family and illness and all of that. So I get all that. But as far as how it affects the community and Transformers, you know, where do you think we're going to be in like a year from now?
It's a tough one. Yeah. Interestingly, TF Nation this year has been cancelled as well, which, you know, a lot of people were quite disappointed about. But I think it's really. What's that?
Scheduled for
August. And I think, you know, a lot of people had assumed it would be because of the timing, you know, what have you. I mean, we went into lockdown obviously a couple of months ago here, and you know, we have our own interesting challenges when it comes to lockdown. You know, if you don't know how much of our media you see or what have you, but it's it's interesting. But yeah, I think a lot of people assumed that TF Nation would be, and they've just announced it a couple of weeks back or whenever it was that it wouldn't be happening. So that's, you know, that's a real bummer, but it's definitely the right thing. You know, and absolutely makes a lot of sense. I think even if they had gone ahead, whether they could have done or not, I don't know. But even if they had, I think there would have been a lot of nervousness from you know, convention goers about wanting to be in a space like that with, you know, thousands of other people. So I think it's a really interesting question. I don't know is the honest answer. Certainly it affects you even if you're at home, really, in some ways with this hobby, because, you know, if you're in the habit of buying stuff online and getting it sent to you, you know, that's a consideration. Whether that's just from a postage perspective, you know, and delays and things. I mean, I've had one parcel that is coming to me from Japan. It's the latest Atmos convoy, and that's I think got shipped to me on the 4th of March, and it's still not even in the country. Do you know what I mean? It's still, I mean, it is, you know, the tracking updates slowly. It's still moving, but it's funny because people keep saying to me, "Oh, have you got that yet?" And I'm like, "Nope." Do you know what I mean? It's coming eventually. So, you know, just got to be patient, and it's understandable. But I think even then, you know, buying secondhand stuff, you know, you've got to think, you know, is this safe and what have you? Do you know what I mean? Trips to the post office, all of that kind of stuff. So I don't know is the honest answer. I'm sure it will, even beyond the hobby. I think it's going to continue to have a profound impact on all our lives for a good long while to come. So, you know, I think it'll be interesting.
Conventions might look totally different than what they look like. It might not even be, you know, what you consider a convention. It might be something else, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I think absolutely. I think there's going to be a lot of nervousness for a good long while about, you know, being in that crowded space. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what people come up with for sure.
So moving on, is there something about you that you want people to know that maybe they don't know? And usually I frame this question a little bit. So is there a question that you answer over and over, either through your blog or through online, you know, medium, that you would like people to know about so that they have that answer?
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting one. I suppose for me, I don't know if it's about me so much. I guess I'm just really proud to be part of the community. Do you know what I mean? And really thankful for a lot of the support I've had. Certainly, you know, I mean, I've been really blessed with support from loads of people, and just, you know, really from engagement from you know, a lot of people in the fandom as well, which is lovely and so nice. So I guess one thing I would say that I definitely want people to know is how appreciative I am of that. Do you know what I mean? And how grateful I am. I still kind of find it strange sometimes, you know what I mean, when people, when you see interactions online that you're not even involved with, and people are saying, "Oh yeah, you know, this is a picture from Sixo," what have you, and that's lovely. I really appreciative of that. Definitely. I guess one thing I often feel bad about is that I get sent a lot of messages, you know, whether it's, I mean, I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and, you know, various other things. So one thing I often do feel bad about is I'm sure I know I miss a lot of messages. Do you know what I mean? That I get sent, and I really do try to keep on top of all of that, but actually it can just become impossible. I mean, I had a guy actually who just a couple of weeks ago who tweeted me something. Do you know what I mean? To look at. It was a question about something, and I just missed it. Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes, obviously, if you've got a busy day, lots of stuff going on, you know, particularly work, childcare, all of that kind of stuff, you know, it can be really hard to keep on top of that. And he messaged me again saying, "Oh, I hope I haven't bothered you," or what have you. And I was like, "Dude, no, of course not." You know what I mean? Like, I just missed it. That was sort of like you know, I really try. So I suppose that might be, it's not really about me, but that might be one thing that I would definitely want to put out there, is I definitely try to keep engaged and respond to people as much as I can. But
it's hard to do.
Yeah, it is hard to do, definitely. But you know, I love getting messages from people and what have you. It's really nice, and it's nice that people are so engaged. It can be hard to keep on top of. It's kind of a job all by itself, you know.
All right, so now I'll open up to the audience is listening. Any questions you have? I have one question already on here.
Sure.
where did the great Cybertron write-off come from? How did you guys come up with that, and how is it made?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can't really take the credit for that. It was Maz's idea, Maz from Transformers Square One. He got in touch. He and I are really good friends anyway. Sorry, I just got distracted by a couple of the comments. Sorry, just some people I know being monkeys, being very cheeky monkeys. Yeah. What's that?
Who are you referring to?
Oh, I can see Dan just there, and Wayne as well, really good friends of mine. So
I didn't recognize names. I figured it was somebody from your.
Yeah. They're just being silly. Anyway, yeah, no, it was Maz's idea. He approached. He and I are really good friends anyway.
Okay.
Maz is a great guy. We're not the same person. For anybody that wonders, that's often that has been a point of rumor on a few occasions.
What do you mean?
Hey,
what do you mean by that?
Oh, it started as a joke. It was this. He and I sometimes have compared notes on some of the random things that we get asked. You know what I mean? And he got sent a message by someone a few years ago now, where he posted something about me, I think, and then someone messaged him saying, "I'm confused. Do people not know that you and Sixo are the same person?" And we were just killing ourselves laughing about it, because it was like, what? And I think it's because we're both in the UK. You know, at the time we're collecting quite similar stuff, and both do photography. So people just kind of, I don't know, make an assumption about that, I guess. Yeah. But yes, it was his idea, Great Cybertronian Write-Off. And he approached me and Toybox Soapbox, another UK photographer and reviewer, and said, how would you fancy doing this? And really, the premise is that we each share a small mini Generation 1 review on a daily basis. We take it in turns. But it was Maz's idea, and we basically, it's not very sexy, but we did an online spreadsheet and said, okay, these are the Generation 1 toys that we own. So we know, who owns what, if that makes sense. Divvied up a schedule, took a load of pictures, did some writing, and then there's a guy called Ticknat who does all of the design, all of the Photoshop work. He's very good at that. And so he sort of pumps them out, if you like, and then we post them on a daily basis. But it's been really good fun, and certainly for me, great to kind of go back to some of those early G1 molds and look at some of those toys again with fresh eyes. So yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah, I mean, I read the first one, and that was interesting to me. I mean, going back in, going in depth on each one.
Yeah,
there's no other resource for that, really. You can put it together.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that obviously still write about Generation 1, and it's still a really popular area of the fandom, which is great. I think Maz has been writing about it for years, and has done I would say a huge amount of work with unearthing various variants and lots of really interesting stuff about the line, and continues to do so today. And to be fair, that's not my forte. I'm not I'm not really a variants person, like collecting some weird variant from 1985 that happens to be different in some way to the main release toy. I'm just like, I got the toy, that's fine. Do you know what I mean? So he's really good at all of that stuff. But I still find the history of the early toys really interesting, because there's so many stories, about how it all came from, obviously from Takara, a lot of it originally, but even stuff like the Takatoko releases and what have you, and there's various ways that it all kind of came to be part of Generation 1, that we all kind of grew up with. I think is really interesting. So
there's a question from Bots and Bits. I want to know if you're interested in answering that question.
What about using the clips?
Yeah.
No, I haven't had any problems so far. But
is your channel monetized or not?
No.
Okay. Well,
no, that'll be why. Yeah, no doubt. So I guess maybe it's something I'll look at and consider for the future.
Yeah, if it's not monetized, you don't have to worry about that kind of thing. Because the whole point of that is so they can claim copyright and then get some of the proceeds from if it's monetized.
Yeah. I did have a claim against one of my videos really randomly with the background music that I'd used, but it went away because I just went back to them and said, no, actually, I have a license for this music, which I can provide you with if you want. And they just, oh, okay, fine. And that was that. So that was weird. I mean, they wouldn't have even made anything, but.
All right, since there's no other questions, I'll just ask my final one. So what's the next big thing for you? What do you want to do next, or where do you want to go, or what do you want to grow? What's up?
Yeah, it's I guess it's sort of up until now I've been very much taking it as it comes. I mean, I never really had any like grand plan. Do you know what I mean? For like, oh, this is how I'm gonna be on the internet or what have you. I mean, like a lot of people, I'm just a normal, I'm just a collector who just enjoys sharing content, really. So I don't necessarily have like a kind of a strategy or what have you. Definitely want to get a bit more successful at YouTube. That's it's still like a real fledgling thing for me. So that's something that I'm definitely interested in doing a lot more with. Just from more than anything, just from my own personal creative perspective. Do you know what I mean? I'm someone that really enjoys finding new ways, new things to discover, new ways to do things. So for me, video editing and what have you, that's a new skill. So that's something, that I'm kind of enjoying learning. So from that perspective, just kind of incremental improvement on I guess, on what I'm already doing. I definitely still also enjoy continuing to up the ante in terms of photography. Do you know what I mean? I mean, from a personal level, just kind of looking at what I already do, what I have done, how I can make it better. So that's, I'm a big believer in doing that as well, of kind of never sitting still, if that makes sense. One thing that I have considered and that I've been asked about a number of times is some way of, either selling or making my photos available for people to buy somehow. And again, that's something that I said for years. I was like, I'm not sure about that. But I've been asked about it so much, and actually last TFN, a lot of people were saying to me, "Oh, you should do like a coffee table book or something like that." So I don't know. That's something that I don't have any plans for currently, but it is something that I've started to in my head think, well, maybe it could be fun. Do you know what I mean? But obviously there's a lot of kind of hoops to jump through with that as well. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting thought, at least,
Yeah, something for the future. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, well, I really appreciate your time. I know this was I bugged you for a long time, and you were gracious enough to join me.
No, well, thank you. Honestly, thank you for asking. I really appreciate it, and it's been fun.
And thank you for the 20 whatever number of people who joined us with questions and with comments, and all the reviewers that are also watching. I appreciate you jumping on the channel to kind of support. So that's appreciated too.
Thank you.
So I'll have all your links down in the description below. So if you want to check out his YouTube channel or his TF Source blog or his website, which I think you do blogs on the website too, right? Not just photos.
Yeah. So it's sixotransformers.com. And then I also write for tfsource.com/blog. That's their blog. And then you can find my YouTube channel. It's just called Sixo as well. So yeah, do check out the YouTube if you get a chance.
Okay, great. And thanks everyone. And we'll see you next time.